A Gateway notebook? Is it any good? Let's check it out. Dave Taylor here, and I'm checking out this. Believe it or not, this is the Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim Notebook. Why do I say believe it or not? Because Gateway is one of the oldest brands in the PC industry, and they went away for a really long time. But I remember back in the day having a Gateway Tower PC, and Gateway, of course, was characterized by the cow black and white pattern. Well, there's not much of that pattern left. There's a little bit on the box, but not very much. So let's actually put the box aside and let's have a look at this computer itself. So this is actually pretty sweet. They've done a pretty nice job. Now, what happened was Acer bought the Gateway license, and then Acer has licensed its Gateway intellectual property to another company. So this computer is either made by a company called GPU, or there's rumors that it's made by a company called EVOO. Either way, I just look at it as a standalone computer, and there's a lot to like here. There are some issues, but there's a lot to like. So first off, let me spin it around so you can see this is actually a very credible 14.1 inch. This is an LCD IPS display running at 1920 by 1080. So this is the same resolution as your HD TV. Now, if you have a 4K TV, then you have much higher resolution. This is an HD. So really high-end fancy laptops and computers that are, 2, 4, 8 times the price of this, they have much higher resolution. But this is entirely functional. And imagine watching TV, what just happened here, it turned off. So imagine watching TV on something this small. So yeah, it's gonna be dense, it's gonna have a really good, bright, crisp display. One neat thing is it has a fingerprint sensor on the touchpad, so I can actually log in just by touching it. Very modern, right? And it's powered by an Intel i5 running at 1 gigahertz, but it can peak at 3.6 gigahertz theoretically. It is a multi-core, 16 gig of RAM. It's a 256 gig SSD drive, so the drive's actually pretty darn fast. The audio, interestingly, is tuned by THX. Now, THX is the same company that gives you that big, beautiful audio sound in movie theaters. So we'll come back to that tuned by THX because it's kind of really cool and kind of really bit of a misrepresentation, perhaps. We'll come back. Bluetooth 5.1, so it's almost the very latest generation of Bluetooth, which is great if you're going to use any Bluetooth peripherals like wireless headphones. The fingerprint scanner, I already said, I hooked it up with Windows Hello. That's how I got it to log me in. Super easy. The forward webcam is 1 megapixel, which is not much. Modern smartphones are 2, 4, even 8 megapixel forward webcams, but this is certainly enough to work with Microsoft Meetings or Skype or Zoom. And we'll come back. I think one of the great use cases for this is for a student who is suddenly stuck working at home because they can't go to school, or a second computer for your spouse or something. Okay, it has a bunch of ports. Let me give you a quick tour of the different ports, and then we'll actually try one out. So let me just sort of spin things around. On the right-hand side, you have micro SD, the headphone or 3.5 millimeter jack, and USB 3.0. And then on the left side, you have the Kensington lock, which is helpful if you want to get a bunch of these for a computer lab or an internet cafe. You can lock them all down. And then the atypical power plug, we'll come back to that in a second, USB 3.0, HDMI, and USB-C. So I think the addition of the USB-C is pretty interesting. Now, I have an HDMI cord. Let me grab it because since it supports HDMI, I thought, all right, well, let's plug in an HDMI monitor. And ironically, that's an Acer monitor. So Acer owns the Gateway brand. So I'm gonna start up our computer again, and looks like I'll probably have to log in again. Let's see what happens here. And everything I'm doing here, let's get this to plug in. Everything I'm doing here should be mirrored there. Let's see what happens. There you go. So now you can watch me log in. And now that's actually pretty slick, right? So having shown this and it comes with Windows 10 Home. Let me just talk for a minute. I'm going to just close this a little bit. Is the power, it's a really nice power adapter, and the prongs pop out and everything. It looks more like something that would come with a smartphone than with a laptop. Thank goodness we're getting away from those chunky clunker bricks. But I'm going to give them points off for this unique and atypical power plug, because this means if you lose this, you have to buy another one from the same company. And that's a hassle. I really, really wish they would have used the USB-C for charging, maybe have two USB-Cs, or some other connection that's more standard that would give you the ability to use another or third-party charger in case something happens to this or you lose it, or you just want to have one in the office and one at home. So that's a bit of a drag. Now, having said all of that, it's all well and good to show you the physical characteristics of the computer, but I really want to show you how it works too. However, before we get there, let me give you a quick close-up of the keyboard layout, because that's really important to people. And I find that it's a really nice, comfortable keyboard, and the keys have a nice travel distance, so it's easy and quick to type on. I had no issues with precision. I typed pretty fast, and it kept up. So now let's switch to actually seeing what's on the display. So I'm going to start by opening the Start menu. And we'll go down, let's find some app we can launch, and why don't we go ahead and open up the Microsoft Store. And you can see it loaded pretty darn fast, but let's launch something else. Let's actually go and look through the files real quick, because again, this is an SSD, so accessing the file system is pretty darn zippy, right? And that's all good. You can see we have the Nova Bench and the CPU-Z. And I also ran Cinebench. So actually, let's pause for a second and let me show you the Nova Bench scores. And then let me show you the Cinebench scores. What this points to is it points to a computer that doesn't have a super fast CPU and doesn't have a super fast graphics processor. But let's go back to the demo now, and you'll see it's still pretty darn functional. So we're back. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually launch another tester, but this actually CPU-Z is more about giving you a profile for what your computer has installed. And we'll let it start up. And so here you can see, I'm going to pause again, and you can see that it is an Intel Core i5. It's the Ice Lake chip model. I don't know all of Intel's thousands of chip names, but that's something some people will find interesting. And you can see the clock speed is 1.5 gigahertz or 1596 megahertz. And lots of data you can extract from this, but let's go back and keep moving on our demo. So we'll close that, and let's just go ahead and open up a web browser. And again, notice how speedy everything is. This is actually quite a functional PC here. And if we go to YouTube, assuming I don't type the domain in wrong, here we are on YouTube, and we can go down and everything scrolls. YouTube has 300 pop-ups. Sorry about that. And if we go to a video, let's see if we can find one that looks reasonably interesting. Yeah, we could try this NFL one. And here's more pop-ups. We don't want that. We'll skip the ad. We'll skip the premium YouTube opportunity. And so now you can see the video is doing just fine. This actually does a really nice job with everything that you really would want to do on your PC. I hope that demo was really helpful. It actually is really fun to try to run it through its paces and see how different things work. And in terms of those performance benchmarks, you have to know what the comparables are. So if you're going to compare these numbers to other computers, make sure they're in the same price range, because there's no question you can drop a lot more money and get a lot faster computer. That's just like saying you can spend more money and get a faster car, right? Now, one thing I really want to highlight, which really startled me, it's one of the first PCs I've had like this for a while, there's no touch screen. it is not a touch screen, so you can't use the screen itself for input. You are using your trackpad and the taps and the clicks. So that's kind of a funky design. That might be something that is going to be an issue for you. You definitely want to know that when you take it out of the box and you start tapping the screen and nothing happens, because there's no sensor. It's also the case that, as far as I can tell, the microphone is like down here. And what that means, and you even heard it in that video, is that every click and tap is big, loud, and thunky. And that's just kind of a mediocre design. What a lot of computers do is they put the microphone higher up so that you don't hear ka-jung if you push the trackpad or something. So that's, again, something worth knowing. When I tried this for a multi-user gaming setup, then I could tell who else was on the call and was actually using a computer where their microphone was near the keyboard, because you could hear junk, 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 junk as they were typing, and it was disconcerting. It's just like, if I use this a lot, I'd probably get some sort of external microphone or something. You can pick those up, honestly, for like $10. It's really inexpensive to have something that plugs into USB 3 and it's on a little stand, and it's gonna sound 100 times better anyway. So there's that as a solution. Now, let's talk about the audio. So, as you saw in the keyboard close-up, this appears that this is a nice long track with a bunch of speaker in it, right? Or multiple speakers. So here's the harsh reality. The built-in speakers suck. They're really pretty awful. There's no mid-range, there's no bass, it's a very tinny high. It is really a worst-case scenario. You'll use it because you just don't have an option. But what about that tuned by THX? So that comes into play when you plug in headphones to the AUX jack. And I was blown away. I am not kidding. I used some pretty nice headphones. I think I had the Beyerdynamics, and it was just amazing. Just such a full, rich, and just a big sound stage. I mean, yeah, they're good headphones, but this did a really good job of converting its audio signal. I was just listening to Spotify, but giving a really good signal to the headphones. And frankly, I was startled. It was just like, well, after listening to this crappy little speaker, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the THX thing is, but maybe that's a little misrepresentation. And then I plugged in the headphones and I'm like, holy cow. They really sound nice. It really has a beautiful sound if you just don't rely on the built-in speakers. So that's the THX piece of it. And it actually is pretty cool and it does work. So that's good to know. Now, let me give you a couple of specs. It's 13 inches by 9 inches by 8/10 of an inch thick. It is 3.5 pounds, so it's certainly portable enough for little Jane or Johnny to take to school at some point or put in their backpack. This is, as I said, Gateway has been licensed by Acer, so the Gateway line actually starts at $179. They have a 2-in-1. 2-for-1 is a different deal. A 2-in-1 for $199. This is in their mid-range at about $500. We'll come back to the price in a minute. And then the top end of the entire Gateway line through Walmart exclusively is $999, and that's a 15.6-inch laptop. I'm guessing that has better performance all the way around. It's obviously going to be bigger and a bigger screen, but this is actually a pretty nice package. So what's the use case for this? I will say I think this would be a great laptop if you have a child who is at home currently doing online schooling, right? It's going to work with Zoom. It has enough graphics power that they can play some games if they really want to. It definitely has enough screen and power to be able to work with any of the Microsoft Suite or Google Suite or Microsoft Online. They can do Zoom or Skype or Microsoft Meetings. This is an entirely capable computer. If you need a second computer because you have one in your family and you just need an additional screen occasionally, this could work for that. As you saw, you can also hook it up to an external screen. That could be a 50-inch TV and it would also look nice. So, there's lots of different ways you can use this. If you are a power user or you were like, 20 years old and hardcore into gaming and have this amazing home gaming setup and you want something for while you're on the road, This probably isn't your computer. This just doesn't have the GPU or graphics performance, and it certainly doesn't have the CPU to really drive rich, complicated games. But outside of the gaming community, most of us use fairly light resources on our computers, and that's where this really shines. So let's talk about the price. But before we get to the price, let me ask if you can subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate when you do that. It's just a tap or a click on that little red subscribe button on the lower right. Easy, right? Cool. Now, this is the Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim Notebook. It comes in this gorgeous blue. I really like this blue. And this is a metallic blue. This is not plastic, by the way. So it comes in blue or black or green or rose gold. The rose gold looks pretty sweet too, but I think this is the winning color of all four. And it is, in fact, the only one that's out of stock at Walmart.com. So it is $479, or you can finance it through Walmart.com for $45 a month times 12 months. That does translate to a 20% APR, so compare that with your credit card APR, because it might be cheaper to just buy it on your credit card and pay it off over some period of months. Either way, you can learn more about it and the whole lineup at walmart.com/gateway. And as for me, I'm pretty impressed. And I think I'm going to go back to listening to some Spotify on my headphones and really just enjoying that THX audio. So with that, I'll catch you in my next video.